Good afternoon, everyone. I am Megan Matovich with the American Board for Certification in Orthotics, Prosthetics, and Podorthics, or ABC for short. And I'm really excited to be joined today by some great panelists to talk to you about how you can get involved in promoting O&P career awareness during your residency. In a few minutes, you'll hear from our panel of ambassadors who all have experience participating in different types of career awareness activities. And you'll also hear from the WhatIsPOP campaign to learn what ways you can get involved in the campaign and increase career awareness as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer Chu from the WhatIsPOP campaign, who will be facilitating today's discussion. Jen?
Great. Thank you so much, Megan, and welcome everyone to this session. We're really excited to talk a bit about how everyone can promote and share O&P career awareness. So first up, I'm going to call up our group of resident panelists. These are a group of O&P residents who are going to talk a bit about what they've done now, what they've done as students, and hopefully demystify some of the ways that you can be involved in career awareness. So I'd like to welcome Kayla Kamiga, Leslie Martinez, and Devin Thompson to the panel. So I'm going to start with some introductions and just see how everyone got to where they are today. So let's talk about how you became interested and what you're doing now. And I'm going to start with Kayla.
Hi, so my name is Kayla. I got interested in WhatIsPOP when I was 14, the field. So I really wanted to help people and I really liked building things. So my dad introduced me to the field because my great uncle wore a prosthesis. And I started looking really into the field. And then when I was in high school, I had a community college near me and I met with one of the instructors. And he really got me into the field because you showed me all the stuff he did throughout his whole career. And I kind of just fell in love with his personality and his passion for being in the field for over 30 years.
It's great. Leslie, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became interested.
Nice to meet everyone. So during undergrad at Iowa, Go Hawks, I had the privilege to be introduced to the O&P profession through clinical rotations. Soon after that, I knew that this is where I wanted to head. So I started my application process and the rest is history. But then at Northwestern, our professor reached out to some of us at first, and I decided to go for this campaign to help. Knowing how difficult it is for a lot of us to be exposed to this profession with how intricate it is, I knew I wanted to help other people be exposed to it. And now I'm actually in my combined residency in Phoenix, Arizona. So
great. Thanks, Leslie. Devin, how about you?
So when I was younger in high school, I was diagnosed with Charcot-Marie tooth, so it kind of affected some of my extremities. But when I was treated at a Shriners in Philadelphia, I kind of saw a lot of people, a lot of younger kids affected with conditions that were severely more progressive than mine. And so that kind of started me down the path of wanting to get involved and help people overcome their disability and help build devices and get them moving again. So I always kind of knew that I wanted to be a part of this field, but I was fortunate enough to get involved in a physical therapy course at my undergrad, and I just kind of snowballed and figured out how to actually get into the field. And when I was in school, I was constantly sharing different devices, different kind of aspects of our field, and getting really good feedback from a lot of friends and learning about WhatIsPOP. I was already kind of doing it already, so they were able to kind of give me some really good resources to just continue outreach.
Great. Thanks so much. One of the things that drew, I think, the three of you together into this panel is I know that you all are really proactive about finding opportunities to talk about the profession. Leslie, can you talk a little bit about what types of career awareness activities you've done and how you've gone about to find those opportunities?
yeah, so I think my big personal focus with POP is exposing individuals of marginalized populations to the profession itself, and then everything around the umbrella under ABC. But more specifically through POP, I was fortunate enough with Sal. Actually, that's where we met. which gave me the opportunity to meet other future professionals, which was awesome. We just got back from Portland not so long ago at the National Diversity in STEM Conference, where we tabled and told a lot of individuals who are kind of interested within this realm of profession about OMP. And then since then too, before then, I went back to my stomping grounds at Northwestern in Chicago. I worked with a lot of public schools, the Chicago Public Schools in Chicago, to talk about what the profession is, what are the steps to go there. And I even visited my old high school. Some of the biggest places that I always encourage people to look after are, your own stomping grounds, what high schools you went to. The educators can kind of help guide you there to talk to other schools, but then also your community resources. So public libraries, any youth leadership groups or councils that might be around your area, which is actually what I'm doing now in Phoenix, Arizona. Wanting to get back to my community, I'm now part of like the public library, and I go and talk to students on on STEM career awareness days and things of that nature.
Great. Kayla, you had mentioned you had a family experience, but also I know that you've done a lot of outreach through your personal and professional networks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so during actually graduate school, I was this like substitute teacher, which gave me like a really good opportunity to get involved with like a lot of kids. So I reached into like teachers that I knew at like different schools, and I convinced them to give me like 30 minutes of their day to promote like what is OMP to the kids. Another big network I actually really tap into is I used to be a rehab aide before going to graduate school. So I would do some of the people I knew through there, like we're going into OT and physical therapy and medical schools. And I would tap into like those networks and to talk to other people in the medical profession about what specifically is OMP, what we go through to get like certified in OMP, and like how we work with them in the future. So kind of like doing both sides of career awareness. So hopefully other medical professionals know what OMP is, and then bringing other kids like into the field itself.
Yeah, that's really important. Devin, you mentioned how you talk about what you do with your friends and family. Can you talk a little bit more about what else you've done for career awareness?
So I've given talks to high schools and colleges, and just kind of spreading the awareness of our field. I think it's super important because a lot of people generally know about our field. We're kind of in an interesting position where people know what an amputee is, they might know about what a prosthetic is, but they don't necessarily know everything that goes into it, all the amazing things that our patients are able to accomplish with the tools that we're able to build for them. So just kind of showing people all those aspects that go into our field, that's not just, just seeing a prosthetic or seeing someone walking around, I think is super important.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that all three of you have found ways to talk about OMP through your communities, whether your community is your former professional community or your actual community, or through schools. It sounds like it comes pretty naturally to you. Does anyone want to talk about sort of how maybe scary it was, or what they had to overcome to make that first call, to do that first presentation?
I'll say the first time I presented was actually to middle schoolers, so I was a little nervous because middle school can be like a rougher crowd to present to in general, because they're going to be like brutally honest, like in the middle of the presentation. If it wasn't going well, they're like, I'm bored. And I think like figuring out like, okay, I have this amount of time. What is one thing I can do to capture their attention at the beginning? How to still keep them hooked like in the middle, and then at the end kind of finish with like a wow factor. But I think like once you can do that, or like all three, any audience you really talk to will be kind of the same. I don't know if anyone else like kind of thought that too. Like when you first go out, you don't want your audience to be bored of you, and then you realize like, okay, like let's just have 1, 2, 3 like big things and capture my audience the whole time.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Leslie or
Yeah,
Devin, what was the hardest?
I just think it comes with practice. Like that first time presenting is always going to be nerve-wracking, no matter what you're presenting about or who you're presenting to. So just kind of getting into your rhythm, and we're all very passionate about it, so it does generally come naturally, I would imagine, for all of us. But kind of translating that passion into an interesting kind of directed approach. Just takes some practice.
Have any of you found, whether it's props or specific facts about OMP or sort of any kind of show and tell or activities that have resonated especially well with high schoolers or middle schoolers, Kayla?
I was actually going to mention, I would say the props are probably the best thing to capture people's attention. Of course, the schooling part is important, and you're going to get all those questions about tuition and what schools are available and this and that. But I think the first and foremost, most important thing with OMP that I think we all were drawn to is just like the intricacies of having a physical thing in your hand that you're working with and compiling. Now you're working with this patient's personal life, and then you're empathizing with them, and then you're gluing it all together to like hand them this product that's hopefully going to improve their quality of life. I think for the individuals who are prospective students, to see that product kind of makes it a little bit more realistic for them, and even just trying the mechanisms out. Because I think a lot of people still have that confusion of, are we the people who make the devices? Are we the people that just eval the patient? Do we do both? Like, what does it look like nowadays? So I think that kind of helps also give a wraparound idea of, this is what you do, this is how you make it, this is how we try it on. What's your favorite part about this? What classes are you taking currently that might be applicable to these building things that we're doing?
I don't know, for like middle schoolers, I had a phone box, and one kid got to do like a phone box impression. So like we did a mock gate trial. So the whole class got to kind of go through like what we look for in the gate, and then doing like a mock phone box and be like, okay, like this is how you take a phone box impression. And that like it's just something that you do every day that you don't realize that it could really capture like a younger audience. Where I think like the older people I've talked to, it's definitely more about like the tuition and all that. Like you can still show them the props, but they have a different focus at the end of the day than like the middle schoolers, or like I did sixth graders like did.
You picked a tough audience to start with. Let me ask you, all three of you, do you have a light bulb moment or favorite memory of a time where you were doing a presentation or talking to someone and you could really see that you helped change their mind or convince them to pursue their profession?
I can talk. Mine was actually like someone's mom. So their kid was in the class I was presenting to, and their mom was a teacher in a different department. And at the end of the day, the mom came up to me and told me her daughter texted her during passing period and was like, "Mom, we really need to look into this, like after school kind of thing." And I thought it was so cute that like the mom who was teaching at the school like spent the time to even like find me to tell me like her kid was that excited. So it's just like the little bit of a difference. It was like one person. I was like, this is why I do it.
It's great.
For me personally, something I always touch on is just, for me, this whole exposure thing is also about people seeing themselves in their practitioners. So I think a lot of the students that we've been in these events for, with my being first generation, things of that nature, it's been interesting and really cool to have these students see themselves in me or some of my classmates that I talked about their experiences. Because I think it just makes an individual relate and kind of believe in themselves and even understand that they are capable of doing this. And this profession is for everyone and anyone who wants to be involved in it.
Yeah, in terms of just the feedback that I get from like friends and sharing on social media and stuff like that, I've had multiple friends reach out and say that they have a family member who has an amputation, or they have, a cousin who has cerebral palsy or something like that, and just really being appreciative and that I'm showing what our patients can do and the lengths that they can achieve. So I think that's probably one of the more rewarding things is just like hearing that feedback and getting that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you all a question about sort of the amount of time and the effort you've put into career awareness. But I'm going to start with Devin, because you just mentioned social media, and we'll talk about social media a little bit later in this whole session. You said you share stories or share about what you do on social media. that sounds like it sounds pretty, not easy, but it sounds like of all the things, like it doesn't require a huge amount of time. You don't have to travel anywhere. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you share and how it's been received and sort of, and maybe into like, how much time do you spend on career awareness?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just scrolling Instagram, I follow a bunch of different pages of Paralympic athletes and practitioners throughout the field, and they're making videos, and it's just two clicks of a button to share that to your story. And, sometimes I'll add a little caption and kind of explain what's actually happening in the video. In school, I would always be taking pictures of the process and the finished devices and all that stuff. So I've been recently, you know, gathering a whole folder of all kinds of stuff that I've been doing, and I plan on making a Instagram page just specifically dedicated to something like that. But in terms of social media, I mean, most people are on it a lot of the times anyway, so I find that pretty easy.
Yeah. Kayla, how much time do you spend on your presentations and things like that?
I think if I know I have one coming up, I spend a little bit more time in it. I think really for me, some of my stuff is kind of impromptu, where like I just end up talking to someone like in the field, or like I'm like out in public and someone like was like, "Oh, like what do you do?" And then like I spend like 10 minutes explaining it. And like sometimes you just get the conversation started, and I think it's a good way to spread awareness, just talking to some random stranger about it sometimes. It's kind of like a mix.
Leslie, how much time do you spend preparing for your talks?
I would say I think the most intimidating part about this is always, of course, like signing up for things and being scared that it's going to be too much on your plate. But I think for these types of things, it's awesome because you kind of do the work once, and then you have your template set for each type. So Kayla was talking about, like interprofessional relationships between other practitioners. So we do that as well with a lot of our PT and OT students, PTA students, things like that. So I have kind of a template set for my students or healthcare professionals side of it, where they're maybe not planning on going to O&P school, but we're still raising awareness of the profession. And I have my other one for like my high school and my middle school people that are going to be more of a 20-minute short synopsis where I can capture their attention, add my videos that, Devin uses for social media and plop them on there. And now they have this 5-minute video of me polling to watch and be excited about. So I feel like once you get the gear running, you kind of start flowing after that.
Yeah.
So I'd say
That's
like
great.
maybe 2 hours, and then after that it's kind of a breeze.
Yeah. You're all making it sound so easy. So one last question before you go, and Leslie, you touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear from Kayla and Devin. Why do you personally think it's important to increase O&P career awareness? Like, why do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on this before, but people generally know the very vague aspects of our field. But as we all know, there's so much more that goes into it. There's so much more time and consideration and follow-ups and adjustments and so much other stuff that we get to help our patients and just figure out the problem and solve it. And that's probably one of my favorite aspects of the field, is just really nailing a problem and getting something to work for our patients.
Yeah, I agree with Devin. I think sometimes when I tell people about what I do, they don't realize all that goes into it. And I have such a passion about like what I do every day at work, that the more I can spread how much I love what I do every day, then like other people realize like how much we really take our job seriously, and how like much of a good field this is to go into, and how much almost I think every practitioner I ever met like has such a love for this field.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the three of you. We're going to see you again at the end of the session. And now I'd love to invite to the panel two current students who are about to start their residency soon, Jillian Dunn and Sal Gonzalez, both at UT Southwestern. And they have some experience with the WhatIsPOP campaign, which I'm going to be asking them about. But let me start with Sal. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what drew you to pursue a degree in O&P?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being able to do this for us. I kind of got into the field mostly because growing up, my dad had MS. And my grandpa had a lot of issues with scoliosis and polio, and kind of seeing that, I always wanted to do something for them, something medical wise. But again, like what kind of like the common theme is, there's not a lot of knowledge about our field. I didn't know about orthotics. My parents were uneducated about that as well. So I went into my undergrad degree in biomedical engineering, and I thought, something of like, I hope I could do something with like people who could better to walk, but I had no idea like there's a whole field designated to help people like this, like amputees, people who had mobility issues. And that was something I was really passionate about, and I didn't learn that till my senior year. So I took a little bit of a life turn. I took all the prereqs to kind of get in, and but this is what I love. I love helping people get back into mobility and helping them get back into their goals.
Jillian, what about you?
I went into college not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I decided to go into engineering. Leslie, go state. But I always liked helping people, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do medical devices. So I added a biomedical engineering minor. And it wasn't until my junior year of college when I was talking to a prosthetist, and he told me all about the field, and that's where I just like completely changed my path, and I actually felt excited about like having a career and getting a job. So yeah.
Well, something that, is a theme from all of our panelists, which is really interesting, is that, someone once talked about the field to you, and sort of that's how you got interested in it. So there's this nice chain of spreading career awareness, sort of generation to generation. Sal, I know that you've gotten involved a lot in career awareness activities through the school. So can you tell me a bit about the ways that you've been able to formally spread career awareness through UT's programs?
Yeah, so I think what's really unique about UC Southwestern is that it's really integrated with like the other professions. So, you deal with PAs, you deal with PTs. So there's a lot of like awareness that they already naturally do. So they have programs like HPrep, which is kind of more geared to like high school students, kind of introducing to STEM fields to them. So we were able to help them for like a 5-week course, kind of helping them getting to knowing the different kinds of fields that they can do, like PAs and stuff like that too. And then there's other programs like the STARS program, which helps more like it could be high school students, or it could also be like college students, kind of getting them more aware of like what other options are there. And it's been great because like others mentioned, we were able to give a presentation about our field, and that was a great way to kind of segue. Like, this is another option for you if you're interested in medical, like medicine or anything. But if you're more interested with your hands and kind of helping going back into working with tools and stuff like that. So stuff like that. There has been a lot more other things that they've been done. Like United to Serve helps with like a middle school, and they are able to kind of help them kind of just do like a little booth, kind of have a big awareness for that too. So just stuff like that has been really helpful to just kind of naturally do it just when it's open.
So WhatIsPOP has made it really easy to get involved with things. When they're like in a city near you or something, they'll send out an email, ask if you're available, which has been really great. So the first thing I did with WhatIsPOP was UT STEM Girls Day in Austin, Texas, and it was at the college. And it was basically this giant event where like different college clubs, different companies, different organizations came and kind of just talked to elementary and middle schoolers about just different jobs and things within STEM. So it was really cool. It was a busy day. We casted fingers of anyone who wanted their fingers casted. I don't know, there was probably around 600 that we did. It was a very big event. It was cool, and it was a good way to kind of put the thought of prosthetics and orthotics in their minds. And then I also helped out with a booth in Dallas at a HOSA conference, which I didn't know what that was, but it's basically a giant organization for high schoolers interested in health professions. So we kind of just talked to anyone who wanted to listen about prosthetics, orthotics, and pedorthics. And it was cool because these kids already knew they wanted to do health professions. So it wasn't just like us trying to get people interested who didn't want anything to do with healthcare. So that was fun. And then I have done a couple different things. I've also spoken with a local college here around Dallas, and I talked to a orientation class about prosthetics and orthotics. And then I've also spoken to a couple high school classes about the field.
Tell us a little bit. You're both students. You're probably closer in life stage to a lot of the people you're trying to reach. What's the hardest part about doing career awareness?
I would say just like knowing how to network yourself, which really is not that hard, but I guess it depends on the person, but just like knowing who to talk to. So for me, it's like talking to my friends who are in nursing, or I have a lot of friends and family who are teachers. So just like talking to anyone you possibly can to help get yourself out there.
Yeah, I think what's difficult sometimes is kind of having that like wow factor, but sometimes like that's not exactly what they need. You know, sometimes we feel like we have to show them the nice shiny things, a nice shiny prosthesis, but sometimes it's just a conversation, and sometimes that passion that you have for the field really shows through why you would even want to do this field to begin with. So I think just having an honest conversation with them and answering any kind of questions, because sometimes they are curious, but sometimes it may not be the best thing for them. So, but again, just letting them know the options so they can also tell their friends is something that's like another kind of consideration to kind of help with too.
As students, you don't have to do this. Like, this is not sort of part of any kind of requirement. So why do you personally think it's important to increase O&P awareness? What is the satisfaction you get from doing these activities?
Yeah, so I think one thing I wish someone told I really wish someone told me as a high school senior. You know, I think that's the biggest thing for me, because I would have been able to kind of target and even save financially, kind of adding another semester to my undergrad degree, if I would have known about this field earlier. So just being able to tell new people like about this field is something so critical, and I wish that like just someone was there to help me with that. So I think it's extremely important to also tell like the high school students to tell like as early as possible so that they can already kind of make those steps towards this kind of career. So I think that's really helpful.
I agree with Sal. Yeah. And just any opportunity to talk about myself, I'll take. So
Well, on that note, thank you, Sal and Jillian. We'll see you again towards the end of the session. I'd love to talk a little bit more about WhatIsPOP right now. As you may all have guessed, today's panelists are all WhatIsPOP campaign ambassadors. So WhatIsPOP is ABC's career awareness campaign. It is aimed squarely at the middle school, high school, and college student, and it really provides an easy opportunity for anybody in O&P who's interested in doing career awareness to be involved. So I'm going to talk about some pretty simple and direct ways to get involved in the campaign. Let's start with the next slide. The first is becoming a campaign ambassador. So what does that mean, and what is expected of someone who wants to be a campaign ambassador? You heard a little bit from the folks on this panel. One thing is they're expected to do opportunities like this. But first and foremost, anybody who's interested, we usually schedule a quick discussion. We want to hear everyone's story. We want to hear what brought them to the field. We want to hear about their schooling. And then we typically write up a short bio that they get to approve. They usually provide us with a headshot, and then you're put on the WhatIsPOP campaign site. So if you go to whatispop.org and look under ambassadors, you'll find all of today's speakers there. If you look closely, you'll see it says meet them. And the reason why we put ambassadors up and their stories up is that we know from audience research that the high school, college, and sort of middle school population, what they really are looking for is authentic stories and a way to connect with real people doing the jobs that they may be interested in. So we want to assemble a diverse core of ambassadors who include those who are prosthetists, orthotists, those who might be podorthists, those who might be fitters, technicians, assistants, sort of everyone from the field sharing their story. And oftentimes people find someone whose story resonates with them or maybe has gone to a school that they're interested in applying to. And they'll reach out to the campaign, and we then in turn reach out to the ambassador to see if they're willing to do an email conversation with the inquirer. So what is expected of you if you become an ambassador? I would say the time commitment is really up to you. At the minimum, you're going to need to commit about an hour, which is time to talk to us, get your bio approved, send your headshot in. And then as Jillian alluded to and Leslie talked about as well, when there are opportunities that the campaign is attending or the campaign is going to, we're going to go ahead and run that by our ambassadors. And oftentimes it's a matter of, who's geographically the closest, who best fits sort of the audience that we're going to, and find ways to get people involved. So if we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about that. You can see there's Jillian and another ambassador, Rebecca Cook, in the right-hand picture doing the casting. And yeah, it was 600 girls, and it was one day. So it was quite a bit of work. But we recently attended a STEM for Her event in DC, which was aimed at local DC high school girls who are interested in science careers. And we invited 3 of our ambassadors to talk about their experiences. On the left, you can see Sal and Leslie at the National Diversity in STEM Conference. There are tons of events that the campaign chooses to go to, and that we often need help. We want ambassadors there, not because we need extra people to work, but because you all have stories that people want to hear about. Someone who wants to ask, what's the best major I should major in if I want to pursue a master's degree? The campaign may not be the best people to talk about because we don't have that experience, but our ambassadors do. And we want to draw out those authentic stories and share them with the next generation who are interested. There are also plenty of virtual opportunities. You don't have to travel if you're busy. You don't have to attend events and fly hither and yon. There are virtual opportunities, whether it's being a online mentor or participating in virtual events like this webinar, or other local networks that might be interested in just having someone pop up on a Zoom career day. These are the types of opportunities that we're constantly looking for, and we're always looking to match them with interested ambassadors. And I touched on the one-on-one inquiries. Those are people who write into the website. They're usually pretty specific about what they're looking for, and we try to match them with an ambassador that has that experience who may be interested. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm so happy that Devin talked about social media and how easy it is to share and post about social media. But I also want to talk about ways that you can carve out and create a social media presence for yourself as a way to increase awareness. These are 2 screenshots from Sophia Mancini, who's currently a resident. She's a WhatIsPOP ambassador. And she created a sort of separate social media persona. I think she has a private and personal Instagram, but this is her her pop Instagram, where she shares reels that show kind of what she's doing in the fabrication lab. She shares about events she's been at. I think on the right-hand side, it's about when they went to present at a 5th grade. So it's an easy way to talk about what you do and do it in a separate platform that is not your personal feed, so that you don't feel like you have to overshare too much personal things. This maintains a nice professional personal boundary. Our recommendations for using social media to establish presence are always to be authentic. Post about what you know, post about what you're interested in, what you're doing. The passion that you have for what you do, just like our panelists today, just really naturally shine through and really kind of motivate. If you're not interested in social media, don't force yourself to be. This is really, really takes a bit of sort of natural inclination and talent to do. Make sure that you're clinically accurate, that whatever you're sharing is in line with the best practices and the way and sort of the treatment policies, to make sure that everything is correct about the profession that you're sharing. And one last tip is just to make sure whatever you do or share is in line with your organization's policies, whether you're currently a resident and it's in line with your residency programs policies, or if you're still in school, as long as your school or program or university is okay with what you're sharing. We can go to the next slide. a couple of our panelists so nicely teed this up for me. It was almost like they were coached to say it. They really weren't. But WhatIsPOP has a lot of resources for ambassadors who want to talk about POP out in the community. One of the best places to go is on ABC's website, where there's a link to the Ambassador Toolkit, and we're going to be dropping that link in the chat. We have a lot of tools and resources for you to use. We have fact sheets, we have postcards, we have handouts, we have all kinds of things that are available to you to use in doing career awareness. We have template presentations, there are videos. I think the best feature is if you go to the toolkit, you'll be able to see that there's a link to what we call a storefront. It is a store in the best sense of the word. Everything is free. And when you go to the storefront, you can order these things. You can order fact sheets, you can order cards, you can order postcards. They'll ship to you for free. You don't even have to make your own materials. You can easily use what WhatIsPOP has created. If you have a great idea about something that you think we don't have, it's missing, we welcome and really respond to that feedback and want to create new things. We've been talking to a couple of OMP programs about, sort of the things that they found work when they go visit colleges. And so we're in talks to produce a couple new giveaways just based on that feedback. So you'll see in the chat an email address. If after this you think to yourself, oh, wow, it is pretty easy and convenient to be involved and I want to be a POP ambassador, please email us at popambassadors@messagepartnerspr.com and someone will get back to you. Please go ahead and follow us. Come check out the website if you haven't already. Follow us on our various social media platforms. And what I'd like to do now is to bring back all of my panelists. And if there are any questions from our audience, we can answer them. But I also have one last question for our panelists today. Great. All right. I'm so glad everyone can join us today. And I think the last thing I want to ask all of you, and we're going to make everyone answer this, is if you had your top tip or one piece of advice to someone who is a resident, who's looking to do a career awareness activity, sort of what is that one thing you tell them? I'll give you a moment to think about it. Looks like Jillian's ready.
I would say just don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and just talk to anyone you can about what you do. And it's not a super common field, and I'm sure people will get excited and want to know more.
Great.
To echo Jillian, I was just going to say, being yourself, it can be intimidating and scary, kind of like you were talking about, to put yourself out there, but really run with who you are and why you're passionate about the profession. And there's always going to be someone who at least can familiarize or empathize or sympathize with everything you've experienced and what brought you to this profession. So
I also agree with Jillian and Liz. I think when you're your authentic self and you're passionate about it, other people are going to realize like why you love what you do, and they kind of pay more attention than forcing yourself to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
I think learning how to tailor your to your audience is super important. Like we were talking about the differences between like talking to middle schoolers and talking to high schoolers and college students. So just figuring out what will draw them and what they're interested about our field is super important to get them hooked.
And what I kind of find unique about all of this too is all of us are like different, and that's really awesome because the OMP field is not just this kind of person. Kind of like what we're mentioning, be yourself. Everyone has a passion for it, and that passion may look different for everybody. But it's worthwhile to know that people want to know, and people want to see that other people know as well. So kind of having that variety is really important.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to thank everyone for participating and to sharing your stories and your experiences. We're really excited to see all of you out in the field and to see what you can do in terms of spreading career awareness. And I want to thank our audience. So for those of you who haven't yet already, please check out whatispop.org. You can read stories about Devin, Jillian, Sal, Leslie, and Kayla on our website. You can also follow us on various social platforms where you might see them pop up in our feeds. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.